We are counting down history's top 10 richest individuals, a ranking where fortunes stretch from unmeasurable empires to rulers who commanded entire national treasuries. From mysterious nomads and industrial tycoons to sovereigns whose wealth dwarfed that of modern billionaires, this list will challenge everything you think you know about money and power. Who truly controlled the world's greatest fortune? Stay with us. Let's begin with number 10. Genghis Khan's reach stretched farther than any king or tycoon on this list. By the time he died in 1227, his Mongol empire covered nearly 24 million square kilometers, about a fifth of the world's landmass. But his fortune wasn't measured in vaults or coin. Loot from conquered cities poured in, only to be split among clans and warriors, vanishing into the steppe. There was no central treasury, no royal bank, just a constant flow of tribute, horses, gold, and silk, all scattered across the empire. Modern economists call his wealth unmeasurable. When it comes to raw control, Genghis Khan stands as the ultimate puzzle. Power beyond price, but no ledger can capture it. Henry Ford didn't just build cars, he built a fortune by reinventing the way things were made. In 1913, his assembly line cut the time to build a Model T from 12 hours to just 93 minutes. That single breakthrough sent more than 15 million Model Ts rolling out of factories, each one affordable to the average American. Ford's surprise move to pay workers $5 a day, double the going wage, meant his own employees could buy the cars they built. By the 1920s, his net worth soared to the equivalent of $200 billion, about 1% of the entire U.S. economy. Catherine the Great turned land into power on a scale few could match. Her reign saw Russia swallow up territories from Crimea to Poland, each annexation adding new streams of taxes and tribute. At her command, over 500,000 serfs worked her private estates, nearly one-fifth the number held by the entire Russian state. On a single day in 1795, she gifted away 100,000 serfs, a move that barely dented her holdings. Revenues from these vast lands and dependents funneled directly to her purse, making her personal estate worth the modern equivalent of up to $250 billion. This was wealth measured not in factories or oil, but in fields, forests, and the lives bound to them. Andrew Carnegie turned molten steel into hard cash on a scale America had never seen. By perfecting the Bessemer process, he slashed production costs by 80% and built a network where every step, from raw ore to finished rails, ran through his hands. The real windfall came in 1901, when he sold his entire steel empire to J.P. Morgan for $480 million, about $350 billion today, or 1.5% of the entire U.S. economy at the time. That single deal made Carnegie richer, in cash, than any king or banker before him. He didn't hoard it all, either. He poured most of his fortune into building over 2,500 libraries and funding education across the globe. But behind the generosity was a legacy of ruthless efficiency and bitter labor battles, like the Homestead Strike, that showed just how much power industrial wealth could wield. John D. Rockefeller squeezed every drop of profit from oil, turning Standard Oil into a juggernaut that once controlled 90% of America's kerosene market. His secret weapon was ruthless deals with railroads, locking in secret rebates and undercutting rivals until the government finally stepped in. When the Supreme Court broke up Standard Oil in 1911, the result was not ruin, it was a windfall. Rockefeller's shares in the new spin-off companies soared, pushing his fortune to around $380 billion in today's dollars, nearly 2% of the entire United States economy. He poured millions into founding the University of Chicago and into medical research, but his true legacy is the paradox. The trustbuster made him even richer. Jacob Fugger built his fortune not with armies or land, but with ledgers and loans. In the early 1500s, Fugger's banking house in Augsburg ran the financial arteries of Europe. He controlled copper mines stretching from Tyrol to Hungary, turning raw metal into the currency of kings. When the Habsburgs wanted the imperial crown in 1519, it was Fugger who delivered the throne. He arranged a loan of 543,000 florins, millions in today's dollars, to buy the votes that made Charles V Holy Roman Emperor. The Fugger ledgers, still preserved in German archives, show a web of credit so vast that at his peak, Fugger's wealth reached the modern equivalent of $400 billion, about 7% of all European GDP at the time. He proved that in the age before industry, the richest man alive was the banker who could outspend kings. In 1324, Mansa Musa set out for Mali with a caravan that stunned the world. 12,000 servants, each clad in fine brocade, marched alongside camels loaded with more than 20 tons of gold. As Musa crossed the Sahara and entered Cairo, he handed out so much gold that the city's markets reeled. Chroniclers like Al-Umari recorded gifts so lavish that gold's value in Egypt plummeted. Prices dropped by as much as a quarter, and they did not recover for over a decade. Modern economists estimate Musa's fortune at up to $500 billion, controlling nearly half of the world's known gold supply at the time. But the legend goes further. Some say he tried to buy entire cities, while the real impact lay in the economic shock his generosity unleashed. No ruler before or since has flooded a continent with wealth so freely, or left such a glittering mark on history. Akbar the Great's empire ran on numbers, not just armies. In the late 1500s, his finance minister Todar Mal set out to measure every field and farm from the Punjab to Bengal. The result was the Mughal Zapt system, a land survey so detailed that scribes recorded soil types, crop yields, and even rainfall, all logged in the Ain-i-Akbari. Taxes were not arbitrary anymore. Instead, Akbar's government calculated exactly how much each province owed, then collected a third of the harvest value, mostly in silver coin. Modern historians put the Mughal treasury's annual take at the equivalent of up to $3 trillion today, about 25% of global GDP. For the first time, an emperor's wealth was built on a foundation of data, not just conquest. Akbar's ledgers turned the riches of India's land into a reliable river of silver, fueling armies, palaces, and a golden age that still shapes South Asia. After seizing control of Egypt in 30 BC, Augustus Caesar didn't just claim Cleopatra's throne. He took over the richest province in the ancient world. Egypt's grain and gold poured straight into Augustus's personal treasury, the fiscus, bypassing the Senate's public coffers. Every year, up to 1/3 of Rome's total revenue came from these Egyptian lands, funneled directly to the emperor. That stream of taxes and tribute gave Augustus a grip on about 30% of the Roman economy, an economic engine that by modern estimates translates to roughly $4.5 trillion. The Res Gestae, his own account of achievements, lists gifts and public works, but behind the generosity was a system that turned provincial wealth into a quasi-personal fortune. Unlike later emperors, Augustus kept a sharp line between his private fiscus and the state's aerarium. But in practice, the distinction faded as Egypt became his imperial piggy bank. No other Roman before or after controlled such a vast share of the empire's gross domestic product. With Egypt's harvests feeding Rome and its taxes filling his vaults, Augustus set the bar for imperial wealth that would stand for centuries, just shy of the final spot on this list. Joseph Stalin's power wasn't measured in stocks or secret bank accounts. It was measured in the factories, railways, and farmlands he commanded as head of the Soviet Union. After 1928, his 5-year plans swept away private ownership, nationalizing nearly every major asset across the world's largest country. Historians like Robert C. Allen estimate that by the late 1940s, Stalin exercised effective control over resources valued at around $8 trillion in today's money, roughly half of the Soviet Union's entire economic output. This wasn't personal wealth in the sense of a private fortune. Stalin's perks were limited to state-funded dachas, a few special stores, and the power to direct the flow of goods and labor. No Swiss vaults, no secret billions, just the authority to allocate the output of an industrial superpower. Soviet archives confirm that 90% of the nation's industry was under state control, with Stalin at the top of the command pyramid. That is why he leads this ranking, not because he could spend it freely, but because he held the keys to half of a superstate's economy. The debate over personal versus state wealth reaches its climax here. Stalin's fortune was the power to shape a nation's destiny, not to cash out for yachts or jewels. Across all 10 figures, one truth stands out. History's greatest fortunes come from controlling entire systems, not just personal assets. Power, not possessions, defines ultimate wealth. That pattern still shapes who rules and who follows today. Which fortune surprised you most? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe for more of history's extremes.